I'm proud of the fact that I'm sitting in a room where a university and ISRA are signing an agreement to continue education for people from within their tradition, Islamic people from within their tradition at that highest university level.
So ISRA is really unique in how it brings together the traditional madrasa education with the Western university education, and I think that will make a great contribution to Australian culture.
After the HSC, there is so many students, they want to learn about Islam, so where they will go. So it's a good thing that they can come and join with ISRA.
If there's any other organisation that since 2009 has achieved what ISRA has achieved, I'd be astonished. And it's been a pleasure to be a partner to some of that.
Combining the traditions of Islamic classical education with Western scholarship. And that combination is so beautiful and it's working so well, so successful in Australia. I don't see any parallel in any other country.
Yes, ISRA is very important for our community. I know that so many from our community, they are learning here. Even my son, he did his master from here.
We run a number of interfaith events with ISRA on the intellectual level, on the artistic level, cultural events, and in the strategic plan for the Institute.
We organised a visit by Professor Mona Siddiqui from Edinburgh University, who came and gave some seminars and conferences, and that was a collaboration between the School of Theology at Sturt University, the Centre for Public and Contextual Theologies, and ISRA.
And a couple of years later, he approached me with Zuleyha to say, could we start a Studies of Religion conference? And that conference is still going.
Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, the Governor of New South Wales, Her Excellency's husband, Mr. Dennis Wilson, Professor Renee Leon, Vice Chancellor of Sturt University, Dr. Imran Naing Win, ISRA President, Professor Graham Brown, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic, Sturt University, Ms. Lynda Lane, Voltz, Member for Auburn, Mr. Paul Lynch, Member for Liverpool, and Professor John MacDonald, Executive Dean, Faculty of Arts and Education, Sturt University. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a renewed Sturt University and Islamic Sciences and Research Academy agreement signing ceremony today. It's a historic day for us. Assalamu alaikum. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land upon which Sturt University main campus resides. I also would like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri nation, extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians who are present. Well, this is a special moment for us. I am, for those who may not know, I am the Director of Centre for Islamic Studies at Sturt University. I'm also the Executive Director of Islamic Sciences and Research Academy, short known as ISRA, as we usually call it. I want to begin this program by giving you a bit of a history of where we started, and also acknowledge some of the pioneering achievements the staff, the volunteers, and the donors of ISRA has really contributed to, and of course the Sturt University, their staff, present and also former executive leaders. You know, we really started, the ISRA stands for fostering scholarly knowledge and building community spirit. This is our key mission. And it was really the 2000s that really raised the need to provide higher level Islamic education in Australia. There was a whole new generation of young Muslims who were able to communicate in English. the second and third generation Muslims who wanted to study and learn their religion. There was nothing at the higher level, especially at the university level at the time. There was a lot of pressure on the Muslim community in terms of, extremism, radicalization, and then they should do something about that. And I have always argued, along with my friends, that the key is education and dialogue. That if you don't provide somebody reasons to live for, they will have all the reasons to die for. And that if they're not educated in their religion well enough, they can then believe anything that they're being told. So that's what I realized after a time of recommending these things that I gotta do it myself, or we have to do it ourselves. And at the time we met, we've had dialogues with Clarke Pearson, Dr. Clarke Pearson, who's with us today, Professor Ross Chambers at Sturt University, who was the Deputy Vice Chancellor academic at the time. Extremely nice, beautiful human beings. And when we proposed this idea, we talked about the idea of having Islamic Studies at Sturt University, and they were really enthusiastic about it. And so we actually established ISRA as an organization upon that possibility, because at the time we were Affinity Intercultural Foundation. I was working there in a dialogue organization. So in 2009, we established ISRA, and we signed an agreement 16th of November 2009 in Canberra with the attendance of Her Excellency Governor Quentin Bryce. And then in 2010, we started working on courses, designing the courses, the first couple of subjects, and we also established the Center for Islamic Studies and Civilization within Sturt University as an organizational entity. And I said to Ross at the time, just before we were ready to advertise the courses, how many student enrollments would be sufficient, good enough? And he said, if you get 30, you're doing really well, Mehmet. But we set ourselves a goal of 99 people, 99 enrollments in that first year. And by February 28, we achieved 99 enrollments. Thank you. We were just overwhelmed by the interest, and our first advertising campaign was what you've been waiting for. But honestly, this is what Muslim community were waiting for, and they really literally flocked to enroll in these courses. And so 2011, we started our first classes. And ever since then, we've been continuing and building our center and our contribution to the community. And over the last 10 years, we had over 2,200 enrollments. So we're really humbled by that. And then we feel that we are providing a real need, a service to the community. Just want to acknowledge some of the pioneering achievements that Center for Islamic Studies at Sturt University and ISRA has accomplished in this time. We established the first Center for Islamic Studies in any Australian university. That was a pioneering achievement. And I think at the time it was the first in the English-speaking world in any university. But the key premise of this entity was that we teach Islam from within the tradition while maintaining the integrity of the religion, but also being open to academic inquiry, critical thinking, and preparing our students for the society in which we live in. So that was number one. Number two, the first Bachelor of Islamic course in any university in Australia, we have established that. That's a pioneering achievement. I think even today, it's the only Bachelor of Islamic Studies in any English-speaking country in the world. They have some, the graduate type of courses, but nothing on Bachelor of Islamic Studies. We have Master of Classical Arabic. That's another pioneering first for us in Australia, and this is designed for non-native speakers. Just this year, this year we have launched the graduate certificate in Islamic psychology, pioneering achievement, first time in the world. I can definitely vouch for that one. And we had really great enrollments in that course. In 2018, we started the first Islamic chaplaincy course. Prior to that, Muslims, if they wanted to receive chaplaincy, they had to go through the Christian chaplaincy courses, where we have partnered with New South Wales Clinical and Pastoral Education. So we now have a graduate certificate in Islamic chaplaincy, and we work with the New South Wales CPE, and we have one full and one provisional supervisors in Islamic chaplaincy. And we are getting requests from New Zealand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and even United States to provide chaplaincy courses. And finally, I just want to mention the Islamophobia report that we published. 3 reports. My colleague Daria Inar worked tirelessly on this. It's very significant for Muslims in Australia because they have suffered discrimination, a little bit of misunderstanding, and that led to Islamophobia. It was very important for us to recognize this, properly reported, researched and reported. And we have achieved that, and now it is accepted as an issue for us to deal with in Australia. And these reports had wide, far-reaching reporting. In the second report, CSU media estimated that it went to 750 million people around the world through TV and print and other internet media. Just want to conclude by saying that if we have a success, and I want to acknowledge the great success that ISRA has achieved, it rests on 4 pillars. The first one is, of course, the support and capability of Sturt University. Without Sturt University, this would not have happened. The quality assurance, the collegiality, and all the policies that Sturt University it makes us produce high standard education at the university level, and that we are able to offer these university qualifications. The secondly is our staff. We began with 3 people only, 1 full-time, 2 part-time. We now have 19 staff. And so we built a great team who now has more than 10 years experience. I was a PhD candidate at the time. We now have 3 associate professors, 3 senior lecturers, and the rest have all PhDs. We're really proud of that building that faculty of academics. Thirdly, the quality of our learning and teaching, what we provide. We strive for excellence all the time, and we recently broke a record within the university with 92.7% positive response rate from students feedback records, and that's 10%, more than 13% above university average. So I'm really proud to really acknowledge that. It was a team effort, and I'm going to apply for a Dean's Award for that one. And lastly, and of course, our community support that we had, and the students. Without them, of course, this center would not exist. Their love for learning, love for knowledge, and enthusiasm to learn their religion is a great asset that the community has. And Australian Muslim community is growing. In the 2021 census, there's more than 800,000 Muslims in Australia. And by 2024, there will be 1 million Muslims in Australia. So the need will grow only, and we are here to continue to serve with scholarly knowledge and community spirit. So thank you for coming once again. And I will be continuing emceeing this program, and I would now like to invite our Vice Chancellor, Professor Renee.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mehmet, for your introduction, but also for that inspiring history. And I was saying to our Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic that what you're doing here, we just have to bottle that and make the rest of the university as successful as you have clearly been here. So thank you. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Darug people, and pay my respect to elders past and present, and join in Mehmet's recognition of the Wiradjuri people on which the Charles Sturt campuses are located, and I extend that respect to any First Nations people who are with us today. I extend a special welcome to the dignitaries who are joining us today and thank them for joining us at this important event. Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, AC, QC, Governor of New South Wales, Ms Lynda Voltz, MP, the Member for Auburn, Mr Paul Lynch, MP, the Member for Liverpool, Dr Naing, President of the Islamic Sciences and Research Academy of Australia. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm really pleased to be speaking briefly here today to celebrate this occasion for the signing of our agreement between the Centre of Islamic Studies and Civilisation, fondly known by its acronym CISAC. We are very proud of the long-standing partnership between Charles Sturt and the Islamic Sciences and Researchers Academy, ISRA, launched in 2009, as Mehmet has outlined, and the establishment of the CISAC in 2011. CISAC provides an exceptional learning opportunity for our students, combining university award education within the faith tradition of Islam, which is a unique model in Australia. CISAC started with just 2 elective subjects and now offers 13 accredited Islamic Studies courses at the undergraduate and postgraduate level, the largest Islamic Studies program offering in Australia. And we continue to build on this. In 2022, we introduced new courses to improve the understanding of Islam and the interaction with Muslims in the Australian context. In the last 11 years, CISAC has had close to 2,000 new course enrolments with Charles Sturt, and students studying have consistently provided positive experience ratings of over 85%, though I hear from Mehmet that it's now gone up even to 93%. So together, we really are achieving great things for students. This agreement is not exclusive to teaching and research in Islamic studies, but also acts as a cooperation in interfaith education and research, a testament to the inclusive and impactful work that is being done. Charles Sturt University is committed to this partnership, which is an exemplar of research and teaching excellence, promoting cultural safety for all, and supporting our staff and students by encouraging an inclusive, equitable and healthy culture. The partnership aligns well with our university strategy that focuses on students, research, people and social responsibility. I also acknowledge the important work of the Centre in community building and cooperation in religious, social and environmental areas, not only domestically but globally, that this partnership provides. In closing, I'd like to thank ISRA, Australia's leading Muslim community and educational institution, for its ongoing support, and with whom we are proud to continue our partnership for the ongoing operation of the CISAC. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you enjoy today's event. It's now my pleasure to invite the Governor of New South Wales, Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, to deliver her remarks. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. I also acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, and in the language of the Gadigal, which is the land on which Government House Sydney stands, Wujuri Gamarua, Dian Babana Gamarada. I think all our dignitaries have been acknowledged, and Dennis, thank you for coming with me today. And there is a phrase in the Gadigal language, I almost said Wiradjuri language, the Gadigal language, which is Iora Budri, which is good people, all of you. And so we are really very delighted to be here for what is a really significant occasion, this signing of the agreement between Charles Sturt University and ISRA. And thank you for that introduction, both of you, and for giving us an understanding of where it sits within academic study generally and within the Islamic community in particular. Today, although we came out from Sydney to the centre of Sydney, to Auburn, we very much feel as though we are amongst friends. I visited CSU many times, and more recently we've been to Dubbo, where Dennis is from, Port Macquarie in Wagga, and we've had Zoom meetings, because that's what we did in lockdown, didn't we? And so we've had a huge connection. And all of those experiences have certainly made me understand very deeply that this is a university of the land, it's a university of the people, and it's a university of the regions, which contributes to the public good. And there is a wonderful Wiradjuri phrase, which is part of your university ethos, and it comes from the Wiradjuri in the Dubbo region, Yindi Mara Winungara, which is a phrase that says wisdom, it encapsulates this sense of wisdom, of respectfully knowing how to live well in a world worth living. We also feel very much at home here in Auburn, although we haven't been this far out from Sydney into the centre of Sydney for Ramadan. We've certainly been to Lakemba, which was an absolutely wonderful experience. But in Auburn, for a long time, we've enjoyed a deep relationship with individuals within the Islamic community, with the community more as a community group, and we've had hospitalities at both before I became governor and after at iftar dinners, which are just amazing, through connections with the Muslim Legal Network and the Muslim Women's Welfare of Australia. We've been many times to the Auburn Mosque. We've been to the amazing Punch Bowl Mosque with its extraordinary architecture. And that has given us the opportunity to absorb the history and the meaning of your ancient religion and culture. And let me add this, just slightly off-piste. I've, on occasion, had conversations with young Islamic women, and I asked them, what's the difference between them, Islamic women, and myself, not Muslim? And I get this interesting response, no, we don't want to talk about differences. This is not about differences. And of course I say, oh, for God's sake, did I say God? Excuse me. For goodness sake, don't be so serious in life. You never have a bad hair day. And do you know what I get told? You have bad scarf days, absolutely. And this reminds me that together, we know we are together when we can laugh together. You don't laugh at, you laugh together. And you share the food, and we've already had a discussion about food. You share knowledge, but you can't have knowledge if you don't have learning. And I think this is why this centre is so important, because it provides the learning that enables not only those within the Islamic community to be grounded within their religion and their culture, but enables that learning to be shared in a very deep way. And it adds a richness to each and every member of the community. So for that, can I say a very deep thank you. We've heard already about the importance of this within the educational field, and we really must wonder what might have become of a partnership like this if it had all started centuries ago. Because there was what was called a golden Islamic age and the European universities, but it was 200 years. And 200 years, although centuries ago, was a long period of time, but it was the university in Fez, and I hope I get this pronunciation correctly, the Al-Qarawiyyin. Thank you, Qarawiyyin. Thank you. Founded in Fez in 1859. I mean, that's extraordinary. And that's still today a university of global renown, recognised as the oldest university in the world. And it took, as I said, another 200 years for a university to spring up in Europe, and that was in Bologna in 1088, and followed. The English eventually caught up a few years later, and Oxford was open to students in what is described as some form in 1096. But in that period, from the 8th to the 13th centuries, and you might understand, I love history, so I hope I'm not telling you the history you already know. But the major Islamic capitals of Baghdad, of Cairo, of Cordoba, became significant intellectual centres for science, philosophy, medicine and education. And every now and then, every period has every, I think, civilization has an era where it sort of goes down a little and then comes up. And I would have thought that until what we have now learned with our community, as we learn and have the richness of the Islamic community teaching us of that centuries of learning, I didn't grow up in Australia understanding that the Islamic community was one of the oldest communities and one of the oldest intellectual communities in the world. And to, as I say, add to that richness of my knowledge and my understanding of you is very, very deeply appreciated. One thing that did happen during that time, there was some Eastern influence because paper came into the story, and from China into the Muslim regions in the 8th century, and then it moved on to Spain and then to the rest of Europe in the 10th century. And here we are in the 21st century. Do we have paper? For me, still, absolutely, but not necessarily for everyone. But times may have changed, but some of the traditions dating back to the times of those first universities remain. Now, CSU gives guidelines as to how to wear academic dress on occasions of graduation: the gown, the hood, the trencher, also known as the mortarboard. Some modern scholars believe that the robe worn by the scholars at those early European universities followed the example of the long dark robe worn by the Arab scholars with wisdom. The doctoral hood draped over the robe is thought to correspond to the tailasan worn by Muslim jurists, about which I'm very interested, of course, having been a judge here in Australia. The trencher, or the mortarboard, itself has a very interesting history, with some suggesting that the hat may represent the writing board used by Muslim students all those thousands of years ago. And so when their teacher quizzed them, they had to put their boards on their heads so that they couldn't cheat by looking at their notes to give the right answer. And when you think about that, funny story as it is, perhaps apocryphal, but either way, it actually is telling you something about inculcating that fundamentally important virtue of honesty, both into academic life and into daily life. And so it's a great honour to be governor of this multicultural state. We have a population of over 8 million, over 5 million in Greater Sydney, and vastly populated, of course, in Western Sydney. Nearly 30% of people in New South Wales were born overseas, and the number of people in our state who said their religious affiliation is now, we heard the numbers from the MEP, but in 2011 it was 3.2%, 2021 it's 4.3%. So you are a vibrant and significant sector of our community. In Auburn itself, 23.1% identify as Islamic, and 80% of the residents in this area have both parents born overseas. All of that tells us that this is a vibrant and a diverse community, a community that we so rightly celebrate. And so congratulations for this agreement, the university, the centre itself. Sturt University is to be congratulated for recognising the need for Australian Muslims to learn their religion at this level. This is very significant academic level, and for their commitment to provide space and organisational capability for students to acquire awards in Islamic Studies and Arabic, as we've heard, at the undergraduate and postgraduate level. May I make this one further observation about community? I have said in groupings like this that the wonderful thing about Australia is that it is normal to be different. And I think that's largely true, but there are hiccups in that, as I'm sure most of you in this room would have experienced from time to time. again, I said that to a group of young Muslim women, and one responded very interestingly. She said, I felt that normal to be different as she ran around the playground, and then 9/11 came. And I think in many ways that's what you were referring to in your speech, Margaret. So let us say a decade on, let's go back to what we really are as a community, where it is normal to be different and where it's normal to celebrate those differences. Thank you for bringing that difference and that richness to us as an entire community in New South Wales and Australia more generally. Congratulations to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Her Excellency, for those genuine remarks and reminding us that historical bond between, or the influence that Muslims and Europeans had. I think that's really important for us for Muslims to remember that, so that they can have the vision of getting back to that golden age, but also for the rest of society to acknowledge that there's something owed to Muslim civilization, and there's a relationship rather than a conflict as well. I'd like to, in this transitions, acknowledge our guests, your distinguished guests with us, so I will do that in groups. So I'd like to acknowledge Sheikh Dr. Arif Shekhar, thanks for coming. Sheikh Dr. Shabber Ahmad, thank you very much for your presence from Quba Mosque, and Sheikh Arif is from Lebanese Muslim Association. Haj Mashar Hadid, Australian Islamic House. Nader Azami, Afghan Community Support Association of New South Wales. Bilal Wahid, Masood Foundation, Australia. And Zia Ahmed, Australian Muslim Times. Thanks for being with us on this occasion. Now I would like to invite our President, Dr. Imran Naing Win, to share with us ISRA's community aspect, not just the university, but we do have a community side. Please welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, my fellow volunteers, and esteemed ISRA staff. May God's mercy, blessing, and peace upon all of us. Well, as a president of ISRA and a volunteer for this incredible organization, it's a privilege for me, and it's a blessing from God to be here with you in this special occasion. Our ISRA organization has close to 20 staff and 100 volunteers, and without these amazing people, we would struggle to deliver the outcomes we normally do every year. Just listening to the pioneering achievement of CSU ISRA partnership and impact of Islamic and Arabic studies on the students and community, I can confidently say that these achievements wouldn't have been possible without ISRA's robust community engagement and presence. Being strongly established in the community, ISRA has been able to connect the community and understand its needs and priorities, and providing the services and support required to meet these needs. And it's that unique point of difference, which made, I think, ISRA so appealing to thousands of people within the Muslim and Muslim community and the broader community. And over the past 13 years, in addition to its Islamic Studies and Research with CISAC, ISRA has also conducted over 100 community events with outstanding results. We have 14 volunteer teams, and I believe majority are the ladies. I think big majority, but I don't need to mention the numbers. And we involve in the community engagement program, organizing conferences, school programs, youth initiatives, and programs for mothers and children, and even Eid prayers, to name just a few. This year, as a first in Australia, we organized the Muslim Writers Festival. That's the very first in Australia, and we showcase the Muslim community's contribution to arts, literature, and culture of this beautiful country. And it was an outstanding success. as ISRA's founders stemmed from the interfaith and intercultural background, we still proudly active in promoting peace, understanding and harmony among the Australians of different faith and lineage. This is in our DNA, you can say. And dear guests, we live in an incredibly ever-changing world, and unfortunately, in the last few decades, the world has been more and more polarized. And almost every day when I wake up, we hear the news of wars, genocides, despotism, hate crimes, terrorist attacks, and we're being bombarded by these sort of news. And that's a reality, unfortunately. And the suffering of these people saddens me deeply. And in my in my professional life, I'm just a simple GP in a corner of southwest Sydney. And there are many GPs like me anyway. And so I feel, especially among the real doctors, I always say that they are the real doctors, the PhD doctors. Yeah? So I always feel like inadequate, and at times I feel helpless. When I think about how I can try to help these people suffering, and I want this suffering to end. And I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in this room, when I say that. Then I comfort myself, and knowing that, I'm part of an organization like ISRA and its friends, like Dr. Ghiloni here. And so we're just focusing on combating the ignorance, bigotry, hate, and extremism by guiding and educating people on the authentic teachings of Islam. So in today's global, and especially in the Australian context, I think that's important. And at the same time, bringing the communities closer. So this comforts me and gives me hopes again. So today we will witness another milestone in ISRA's Sturt University partnership. So I want to thank the staff, volunteers, and the community, Your Excellency, Governor, and our friends and distinguished guests who make time to be here today. And I also want to thank the Vice Chancellor and particularly our partners at Sturt Universities who made this journey possible. So in ISRA, we are a diverse Australian Muslim family. I'm from a Burmese background, and we're expanding as the years go on. So we hope to grow from strength to strength with your continued support. Thank you again. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Imran. You opened up a debate about who's a real doctor, and and thank you for your friendship, leadership, and volunteering spirit that you add to this organization, and is one of the most humble person that I know. I'd like to also acknowledge your dear guest, Fatih Sen from Australian Universal Federation, our top organization for 15 schools around Australia. Deniz Erdoğan, also from Australian Universal Federation. Ismail Aydoğan, the president of Australian Universal Federation. Mehmet Koca, the principal of Amity Colleges in New South Wales. And Hüseyin Kızmaz, the executive director of Galaxy Foundation. And Mehmet Saral, the president of Advocates of Dignity. The Mehmet Saral has a important part of the journey of ISRA as well. He was there at the beginning when he was the president of Affinity Intercultural Foundation at the time. So he was involved with the beginning of ISRA journey as well. Okay, so now I would like to invite our Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor Graham Brown, to say a few words. Thanks.
Thank you, Mehmet. I'm really thrilled to be here to recognise this this signing of this agreement and the continuation of this relationship. Back in the days when I was a real academic rather than a management wonk, my research was on multiculturalism, interfaith relations and ethnic conflict, working in particularly in Southeast Asia. So these kinds of organisations are really, and relationships are really dear to me personally, as important as they are to Charles Sturt as well. But I also wanted to share a couple of vignettes, if you'll indulge me, from my research background, maybe nostalgia for the days when I was a practicing doctor of the form, which to me illustrate the importance of this kind of organisation to Australia, not just to Charles Sturt. The first of these was about 10 years ago. I was working in Malaysia doing some research with Christian communities on how they viewed the relationship between religion and citizenship. And we can discuss for hours another debate, I'm sure, that we can have for hours for those familiar with Malaysia about whether Malaysia's experience of multiculturalism is something positive or something negative. It's a very interesting country from that perspective. But there's certainly no question that at times the ruling coalition had exploited religious divisions to gain political advantage. And this was certainly the case at the time when the Christian community was being very publicly harangued by the governing coalition. And we were working with these communities to understand their view of what religion and citizenship meant in a multi-faith environment, and one where they felt very marginalised. And while we were doing the field work was the time when Anders Breivik committed the mass atrocity in Norway. People will, I'm sure, remember when a far-right radical shot, I think it was over 100 people in Norway in a deliberate attempt to start a race war. And as we were doing our fieldwork and interviewing these Christians who were very well educated, many of them doctors, lawyers, but felt very marginalised in Malaysia, we were stunned by the number of them. The line we got all the time was, "We don't approve of what he did, but we understand why he did it." And the fact that you could have these educated, Western-oriented, apparently very liberal Christians expressing tacit support for that kind of action was something that absolutely stunned me. But it's something which over the years I've been working on these kinds of issues, and I'm certainly not alone in thinking this. I think that one of the key drivers of radicalisation is a sense of marginalisation and a sense of loss of community and a loss of identity within your own group. Diaspora groups, marginalised groups are almost always the more radicalised groups around the world, not just religiously but also ethnically. The Tamil Tigers were funded for their 20-year civil war overwhelmingly by Sri Lankans in exile, not by Sri Lankans within Sri Lanka. And so that speaks to the importance of organisations like CISAC for providing the opportunity for interfaith dialogue, for people to learn about their own religion and to avoid radicalisation through learning within their own community and within their own faith tradition in an environment in which they do feel marginalised, and very rightly so often. That the main bulwark against radicalisation is understanding your own faith within that multicultural context. That's what these Christians in Malaysia had not experienced, and that's what CISAC provides in Australia, and I think that is a magnificent achievement. The second little vignette was less my research, but some colleagues who I worked with, and our colleague, I'm sorry I forgot the name, from the Australian Lebanese Society will probably know more about this than me, but I did work with a group based in Byblos, Jubail, in Lebanon for a number of years, and went to visit the place on a number of occasions. And it's a stunning, beautiful town, again, in terms of these traditions of learning, the longest inhabited settlement in the world, absolutely stunning. And I asked when I was there, how did this beautiful city escape the destruction of the Lebanese civil war? This was before the more recent wave of conflict that Lebanon has unfortunately experienced. But it seems the conflict seemed to have passed Byblos by. And the answer we were told by everyone was it was the local community leaders. When the civil war broke out in Lebanon, the local Shia leaders, it's predominantly Shia and Christian and Maronite leadership in Jubail in Byblos, just said, no, we're not playing, we're not going to get involved. And so the war literally was fought around and outside Byblos and never really touched the town itself. And that speaks to me to the importance of community and community leadership in multi-ethnic and multi-religious contexts. And so what I think is so thrilling about CISAC and ISRA, and we've heard this from other speakers, is that you're ticking all of these boxes, providing the analysis and understanding of Islamophobia, of what drives the marginalisation of the Islamic community in Australia, providing the understanding for that community amongst itself to provide a bulwark against radicalisation and that tradition within the faith to understand it, and providing that community leadership to ensure that communities come together and that when we have those sparks, those areas of tension, things that maybe could spark bad feeling, that we have that community leadership to come together and to unite against it. So I think CISAC it's a wonderful organisation for the students. It's a fantastic opportunity isn't the word, a fantastic part of the Sturt University, but it's also got that importance to Australia, which I think we cannot underestimate. So thank you, Mehmet.
Thank you, Graham. Well, critical times require critical leadership. Thanks for reminding us. I think one thing that's great about Sturt University is that it lives up to its ethos of the wisdom of knowing how to live well in a world worth living, that Her Excellency reminded us as well. Because when we approached Sturt University leadership at the time, I was really surprised by the welcoming, that the economics was in the background, the opportunity to make a difference in the world, in the society in which we live in, really came forward. I know that because before Sturt University, I approached Sydney University. And they said, oh, great idea, Mehmet, $3 million, thank you. That I have to find $3 million. And I can't even have $30,000 at the time, you know. And like they just looked at it from a money-making angle, and they lost the opportunity to have all these greatest pioneering achievements that Centre for Islamic Studies have done over the years. So I really appreciate that Sturt University's difference amongst other universities. I'd just like to also acknowledge our interfaith partners and friends that are here with us. Father Dr. Patrick McInerney from Colombo Centre for Christian-Muslim Relations. I had my first interfaith experience 20 years ago in this centre. So it has a special place in my heart. Helen, Clarke, North Grammar, Dr. Aaron Ghiloni, St. James Institute. Thank you, Aaron. We just had a wonderful interfaith session a week ago, and we will have another one in 2 weeks' time in ISRA as well. And Reverend Dr. Clive Pearson, Uniting Theological College, Dr. Anthony Rees, Uniting Theological College, Reverend Dr. Peter Walker, the Principal of Uniting Theological College. Thank you for being with us today on this special occasion. Well, we have with us Honourable Lynda Jane Voltz, the member for Auburn. Please welcome Lynda.
Well, thank you, Mehmet, and welcome everybody to Auburn, which is one of the most diverse regions of Australia. You actually stand on the lands of the Wongal people, whose lands cover the south bank of the Parramatta River from Memel Island to Rose Hill and along the east side of Duck River, with the Wadagoro people on the other side. So I pay my respects to their elders past and present. Thank you everyone for coming here today. This partnership between ISRA and the Sturt University speaks to you about what a sophisticated multicultural society should say to you. underlying everything we do in Auburn is the right to education, the right to work, and the right to religious freedom. And so many of our people, as the Governor has pointed out, the framework of their lives is their religion, which gives them comfort. And over the last 2 years, it has been extraordinarily difficult in our area with extreme lockdowns. We had the large 6% of Auburn is Afghani, and as you know, the fall of Kabul in the middle of lockdowns was so distressing. We also had the largest Ukrainian population. As you know, the Ukrainian has added, not to mention the problems in Sri Lanka and with the Uyghur community, the largest Uyghur communities also in Auburn. So it has been extremely difficult, and you cannot underestimate how important it is for our people, rightly as you said, not to be isolated, to be part of our sophisticated multicultural community, and for our education to reflect who we are, and this does exactly that, and it is a fantastic achievement and driven, as so many things in Auburn are, not by government, by the people and people coming together. So thank you all for coming here and welcome to Auburn, which is a great place to be, and you should come more often.
Thank you, Lynda, for acknowledging the very diverse multicultural nature of Auburn. I lived in this location for 30 years now, and I really saw it develop, it become a really multicultural in every sense of the word. I just want to also acknowledge we have with us today ISRA board directors, so thank you very much for coming. ISRA has a very strong and diverse board, functions really well, and also ISRA and CISAC staff. We only have half of our staff at the moment. The other half are in Melbourne. We have a Melbourne centre as well. So if you did not know, so ISRA is a national organisation. Hopefully next one is in Brisbane. And also we have some of our volunteer team leaders also with us. Thank you very much for your tireless work, dedication to this organisation, and the volunteer spirit that the staff and volunteers equally have. We're almost there. We got just 2 more short speeches, and we have with us Honourable Paul Lynch, member for Liverpool, and I've known Paul for 20 years as well. He's always been a great supporter on the journey. Please welcome Paul.
Thanks, Mehmet. I commence by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Wangal people, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Can I acknowledge Her Excellency the Governor, Mr Wilson, Vice Chancellor and other reps from CSU, Mehmet and the reps of ISRA. Can I add my congratulations on the re-signing of this partnership. One of the virtues of longevity in politics is that you get to see things develop, you get to see a course of things. One of the joys of my life as a politician has been following the work of Affinity, which is where Mehmet and I first came across each other, and following the work of ISRA. You've all heard of the achievements that have come from ISRA. I don't need to go through them, but as a Member of Parliament, you often see the bad bits. You often see the hard bits, the things that you struggle with. You have to offset those by good stories, and ISRA is in that category. It's one of the things that means that your political life hasn't just been one series of disasters after another. There are actually good things happening out there. So there are virtues to longevity. Because I'm a politician, let me make 2 political points. The first is what ISRA has done and what CSU are doing with CISAC is incredibly important. Because we're living at a time where we're being bombarded with this rhetoric of Western civilisation being left behind, and we need to re-establish the values of Western civilisation. We need to teach everyone about Western civilisation in Australia. That comes from a conservative group who do not know what Australia is, that have no understanding of who we are. We are, if anything, a nation of migrants who've come from all over the bloody world. And we are a lot better than just Western civilisation. It's not the end of history. I mean, Fukuyama was wrong. There's a whole lot more in this world that goes beyond what that small group talk about with Western civilisation. And yeah, that's all terribly political, but then I'm a politician, so I can get away with saying that today. The second political point is this: can I particularly acknowledge the work that ISRA have done over Islamophobia and the Islamophobia Register? I mean, that's good and important work. It's incredibly valuable for me. We tried earlier this year to introduce religious vilification laws in New South Wales so that they applied to the Islamic community, applied for the benefit of members of the Islamic community. There are currently religious vilification laws which protect Judaism and Sikhism, but not any other religion. And that's an indication of just how mad some of our laws are. One of the primary bits of evidence I used when I moved a private member's bill to make that change to the law was the Islamophobia register. So yes, it's a good and important thing to do, but it has real-world political consequences. And we missed by about 3 or 4 votes. Interestingly, the government voted against it on private member's bill from the opposition. Of course they're going to vote against it. That's the nature of madness, the madness of adversarial politics. But not only did Labor vote for it, we got the Greens to vote for it, and we got the shooters, fishers and farmers to vote for it. And we got all of the independents bar one, and if we bring it back again, we'll probably get him. But if you can get something that is sometimes controversial and you get both the Greens and the shooters and fishers and farmers voting for it, you're doing something right. And that is in no small part due to the evidence that was produced by the Islamophobia register. So that contribution by ISRA is actually quite important. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Once again, I'm delighted to add my congratulations to ISRA and CSU.
Thank you, Paul, for your support and well wishes. Yes, we've done the report 3 times, so I think that policy making needs work, and thank you for trying that in the Parliament. I didn't know it was that close. Please let me know if we need to speak to any of the members of Parliament. In a good way, in a good way. Okay, our final speaker is Associate Professor Zuleyha Keskin. Zuleyha has been with us since the beginning when ISRA was established, so we began the journey together. She has a massive contribution to the organization, and she's has been our course director for a long time. And Zuleyha will share with us the education that we provide, its impact on the community and the students. Please welcome Zuleyha.
Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we gather on today. Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, distinguished guests. I won't mention everyone by name, but I hope you don't mind. I do realise that I am the last speaker and I am sort of that, I guess, barrier between you and lunch. So bear with me. And luckily, Your Excellency, I had a good hijab day today, so it could have gone, badly, but for this occasion it was good. But that was such a nice point that you raised, and I truly do believe that CISAC and ISRA is a product of dialogue, and seeing some of our dialogue friends here, especially Clive and his wife Mary, play a very special role. It's a long story, but you know, I think they're very special. So thank you. Yeah. So I'm here to, I guess, as the course director of the since inception of CISAC. I've been the course director. And so I have very good insight into our students. You know, they come to me, you know, if they want to take leave or what have you, they come to me when they have inquiries. So I have a good idea of, you know, why they study with us and what they get out of our studies as well. And I do believe, I feel very blessed to be part of their journey of our students. They are at the centre of what we do, and they're definitely at the centre of what I do as a course director. I guess before I mention a bit about our students, some of the stats I thought I would share with you. This is the research side coming out. I didn't have to go through ethics clearance for this one, thank God. We have had 2,200 students enrol in our courses since commencement, so that's a significant number. We've had 415 students who graduated from our courses. We currently have 380 students actively enrolled in our courses. We offer 95 subjects and 13 courses, and we have 19 academic and professional staff who service those courses. This point's been made, I guess, somewhat, but I wanted to reiterate it that we are the largest Islamic Studies and Arabic department in Australia, offering the largest number of subjects and the largest number of courses in the discipline area at the higher education level. This is based on research undertaken by Rain et al., where the authors of the research captured all the courses and all the subjects that were being offered in Australian universities all around Australia. And it was found that CSU, Sturt University, is leading the way. I would actually argue that we are not only leading in the Australian context, but we are actually leading in the West. And this is based on our research, and we, Dr. Mehmet and I published on this. We're looking at other Islamic studies courses and subjects being offered in the West. And you do have organisations like the Zaytuna College in the US, or Cambridge Muslim College and Campbell Markfield Institute in the UK. But when you look at what they're offering, as far as we can see, we are the largest organisation in this space offering Islamic studies. So it really is great to be leading that from down under. So coming back to our students, what stands out about our students is the diversity of our students. I'm not talking about ethnicity and age, although it was very interesting the first year that we offered it, we had he still holds the record, our oldest student who was 80 years old who was studying with us. And, we do have such diversity. But when I say diversity, I mean more so their background, their educational background. We have, students who are community leaders and even imams of mosques who are studying with us. But we also have students who would have never thought they would be studying at university if we didn't offer what we offered. And this is probably the most significant part of it. But if I first go to the community leaders and imams, I just want to mention some of a small snippet of the type of students we have. And you won't know them by name, but I'm just giving you a name, like Amani Haidar, who is an award-winning author and artist. Grant Canaston, he was a recipient of the Oxford University Scholarship. Silma Ihram, she's a school principal currently located in Adelaide. Dalia Ayoub, she's a community leader and she's got a huge outreach. Mabina Ahmed, managing editor of the national community news platform A Must, and her father happens to be here. And Tamana Dakik, a lawyer and a co-founder of her own law firm. We have Imam Ansar Kutahia, who is Imam of Penshurst Mosque in Sydney. Salman Parker, Imam of the largest mosque in Western Australia. Mohammed Didic, Imam of Bosnian Mosque in Melbourne. So that just gives you a snippet of the type of students that we have, and they are high calibre students who are wanting to study with us. They have excelled in their professions, but they also want to learn and I guess be involved in self-development. So 2 quotes I've got from students based on my research, which I think capture why our students study with us. I thoroughly enjoyed my studies and feel they gave me the right level of knowledge that I was seeking. The course has also proven to be beneficial for my career prospects. The second one, ISRA should not sway away from its signature focus on delivering academic, traditional Islamic science in Australia. All else except the latter is abundantly taught at other universities. So it really shows that, we are, we've captured a unique and a niche area that we're able to service, and like Mehmet said, that's what they were waiting for, and we were able to offer it. So our students do study with us to enhance their profession or to embark on a new profession. They see opportunities through our courses. Then there are those who want to study for personal development purposes. So there's a variety of reasons why students are taking on these university courses. As I mentioned earlier, there is a cohort of students who are very special to me personally. They are students who I believe would not have studied university, as I said, if we did not offer these courses. And they have told me this. It's not. I'm not projecting. They told me this. And there are many reasons. You might say, why would they not study if it wasn't for these courses that we offer? And I would say that 2 main reasons. One is that the courses are taught from within the tradition. That is very appealing to students. And it helps them to trust in the course content. But also, secondly, because the course content focuses on classical Islamic studies, which is something once upon a time where they would have gone overseas to study, to Yemen, or it still happens, but for those, I guess, who don't have that opportunity, they can study classical Islamic studies in Australia, and they're able to do this without neglecting the contemporary knowledge, contemporary Islamic studies, and the academic standards that they're also exposed to. So I guess in other words, our students are able to study in a discipline area which they are passionate about while receiving a university accreditation, and this is a great opportunity for them. It has been absolutely beautiful to see our graduates flourish in society after completing this degree. And often we do stay in touch with them to see where they are and to see that some of them have become writers and authors and teachers, entrepreneurs and so much more, or they found that their degree was enhancing the career that they were in. We truly believe that we are changing lives through the knowledge and skills we offer. And I do believe our students and our graduates are a testament to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zuleyha. If you'd like to find out more about what ISRA does and have been doing, we have our annual activity report 2021. It's printed. It's located in a number of places in this floor. Please feel free to pick one on your way out today. So we've completed our speeches. We're now at a time we can now have this actual signing